DeMar DeRozan is gone. DeMar DeRozan is getting traded from the Sacramento Kings as they have a new GM. They have a new group running the show in Sacramento, and a recent analyst has linked the Toronto Raptors to trading for their former star. Now, this comes with some serious complications, and personally, while I love DeMar DeRozan, he's one of my favorite basketball players of all time, this does not make sense for this Toronto Raptors team, at least here now at this point, at least pre a Giannis trade or pre a major change incoming for this Raptors squad. So we're going to break down what is being said regarding to a DeMar DeRozan trade happening, the Raptors being linked to DeMar DeRozan, and why this does not make sense right now. As much as we love DeMar DeRozan, as much as it would be awesome to see him back in some Toronto Raptors threads, it does not make sense to have DeMar DeRozan back on the roster, at least for this upcoming year. And he's still good. He's still a phenomenal basketball player, don't get me wrong. But we're going to dive into it all in this video. But before we do that, folks, again, you guys have been crushing it. Hit the sub button. We're delivering all of the latest Toronto Raptors news and stories. So make sure you guys hit that sub button if you don't want to miss a single thing that's going on with this Raptors team. But what's going on? Why are we bringing up DeMar DeRozan here in 2025? But basically, news has come out that the focus in the California capital, of course, Sacramento, shifts now to what spot of dealing we could see from the Kings' new regime. There has been no shortage of rumbles since the hiring of Scott Perry as general manager that Sacramento is expected to gauge the trade market for veteran swingman DeMar DeRozan. Now, we have heard multiple things coming out of the Sacramento Kings camp. This is the most recent thing that dropped today, but basically, they want to make some changes out there in Sacramento in terms of everything that's going on with their team, with their squad. And DeMar DeRozan is a very good basketball player. Don't get me wrong here. This season averaged 22 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4.4 assists. Even though he's 35, going to be 36 next season, he is by no means washed. He had some big games out there for Sacramento last year, and frankly, just has become one of the more underrated players in the NBA just because of the squads that he has been on. DeMar DeRozan was not the problem for the Sacramento Kings last season. They dealt with a ton of turmoil, a new coach, De'Aaron Fox getting traded. It was a messy year for Sacramento. And frankly, DeMar DeRozan was one of the more clutch players out there in the NBA. So DeMar DeRozan is still a phenomenal basketball player. Do not get it twisted. Do not get it, switched up in your brain. DeMar DeRozan in a vacuum back on the Toronto Raptors is something that I would love to see. And frankly, it's what some analysts are coming out and pointing to for this Raptors squad. Essentially, in terms of top 5 destinations for DeMar DeRozan, the Raptors were named as one of the top 5, basically by this analyst. And bringing DeRozan back to Toronto would certainly appeal to long-term Raptors fans. And while he would prefer to compete for a team in the playoff chase, going back to Canada to finish his career could interest the man who will turn 36 in August. The big question is, would the Kings be interested in getting back a player like RJ Barrett in the deal? I mean, if RJ Barrett's offered in this deal, you absolutely run with it. You scream that you just absolutely robbed the league, because RJ Barrett at this point right now is a much more valuable asset than DeMar DeRozan. I don't care what people are saying about RJ Barrett at this point. Oh, he's the guy that should be traded. He's the guy that should be dealt or whatever. RJ Barrett is 24 years old, averaging 21, 6, and 5, plays solid defense, knocks down threes at a high clip, shoots 40% out there from the quarters. RJ Barrett, I'm sick of the disrespect of him getting tossed out here in these deals. So, again, to make the money work for a DeMar DeRozan trade, yes, RJ Barrett has to be one of these packages. I'm not saying you primed RJ Barrett's the level of a prime DeMar DeRozan. I've seen some people be able to make that argument. I mean, I don't think it's that crazy in terms of, something that's a stupid argument. But DeMar DeRozan now at 36-37, trading away RJ Barrett from him, who makes a similar amount of money and a similar range deal. That is idiotic. That is just bona fide dumb. It doesn't make any sense to the Toronto Raptors to even consider, even contemplate that type of trade package in terms of things that are going. RJ Barrett's a better shooter. We have a lack of shooting from our star guys out there on this team. DeMar DeRozan works from the exact same areas on the basketball court as a Brandon Ingram. DeMar DeRozan's fit with Ingram, fit with Scottie Barnes, fit with Jakob Poeltl. It is not optimized for what this team is able to do. RJ Barrett, while he's not the maybe perfect stylistic fit, he can knock down threes. He can knock him down at a high clip, still slashes, can facilitate a little more. RJ Barrett just makes way more sense out here on this Toronto Raptors team as is. So that's the first thing, just logistically. dealing away RJ Barrett, even Immanuel Quickley, doesn't make a lick of sense. Doesn't make a lick of sense for the Toronto Raptors, for Masai Ujiri to actually go down, no matter how sweet the nostalgia might taste of having DeMar DeRozan back on this roster. And DeMar's talked about, hey, maybe, I'd like to retire Toronto Raptor. He talked about, like, the one-day deal, the same thing Kyle Lowry did, or, well, the same thing Kyle Lowry, like, said. He hasn't retired yet, of course, but, retiring a Toronto Raptor, that's something he'd be interested in doing. That's cool. That's all well and good. And so they'll say, hey, maybe get a couple seasons because he's still been playing phenomenal basketball. DeMar DeRozan wants to be back to the Raptors. Maybe we bring him off the bench. Maybe we put him in that position. Well, even then, that doesn't make a ton of sense for the direction of this Toronto Raptors squad. Why? We are loaded at DeMar DeRozan's position. Grady Dick, averaging 14.4 points per game, is only 21 years old. You are sacrificing the development of Grady Dick if you have DeMar DeRozan out the roster. And while, yes, DeMar DeRozan is certainly the better player right now in the short term, he is 35, 36, the Grady Dick's 21. You develop him, and while, yes, DeMar's a better player, Grady Dick's skill set is more apt for what the Toronto Raptors need. He can spot up, shoot from the three-point line. He shoots a high volume of three-point shots. He can slash a little bit. Like, Grady Dick is kind of the style of player that complements a Scottie Barnes, an RJ Barrett, a Brandon Ingram, a Jakob Poeltl, all of these guys very, very well. So you don't want to sacrifice minutes from Grady Dick, but it's like, okay, you can have a couple wings off the bench. You have Jacoby Walter as well, the rookie that really surprised a ton of people on this team, knocking down three-point shots himself. The back half of the season, Jacoby Walter was an absolute demon out there off the bench of the Toronto Raptors, starting in some games. 9 points per game on total for the season, 3.1 rebounds, 1.6 assists, but, pretty solid out there as a shooter, as a slasher, doing all this stuff. And frankly, at the end of the season looked really good for this Raptors team. And again, 20 years old, fits the timeline, is in that development stages. We don't want to give up on the development because, of course, we're not going to trade any of these guys, in a DeMar DeRozan package. Just give it DeMar's value, give it his age and everything like that. But you were sacrificing development. You were sacrificing everything the Toronto Raptors have been through over the past year and a half because, yes, it's not going to culminate in terms of a Cooper Flag or, one of those top overall draft picks. We've come to that realization now with the lottery, and, the Raptors not going to be bad enough to be in this position ever again, I'd imagine. Unless there's a bunch of injuries next season, the Raptors are not going to be in that spot to get a Cooper Flag or anything like that next year. Cooper Flag caliber player. But so you have to develop the guys in-house. And if you sacrifice what you've been building the last year and a half, because what's the value of all the losing? The value of all the losing is we have, guys like Jamal Shead. The Shead heads are allowed to culminate because, he gets a full season of actual development, a full season of actual run. You have Jacoby Walter, even despite injuries, getting in a position where he can play. Grady Dick gets a run, gets some extra positions, extra touches to develop his slashing game and all that stuff. You are sacrificing that Masai Ujiri if you end up making a trade for DeMar DeRozan. So not only does the trade package not make a ton of sense, giving up RJ Barrett in one of these deals. Now, it seems like RJ Barrett's getting thrown around in trade talks willy-nilly, so maybe DeMar's better than what we've heard, in terms of other packages. But frankly, I am not that enthused. I am not that optimistic about, DeMar DeRozan trade happening right now. Now, if the Raptors roster turns on their head, they get Giannis, they're depleted of assets, you get DeMar DeRozan on the cheap, do it, right? That's a position where I'd love to see DeMar DeRozan back because, as I mentioned, he is still a phenomenal basketball player. Do not get me wrong. And I'd love to see Giannis on this team. We are back in championship contending window, assuming we don't, trade our entire roster to get him. So, you bring back DeMar DeRozan under those circumstances, that is something cool. You keep most of your roster there at this point. You keep, you bring in Giannis and you still have a Brandon Ingram. You still have one of Scottie Barnes, Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, whoever the heck it is. You have the young cohort. You have all these things. Then you do a cheap trade of DeMar DeRozan. You make that happen. But other than that scenario or something similar along those lines, it's not the right time for DeMar DeRozan to come back as much as I love him as a basketball player. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys are best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.